Welcome to SHOWstudio. It's Milan Fashion Week, looking at the men's shows specifically, and it's my favourite panel because we're doing our student panel, which is fantastic, gets the opinions of lots of bright young minds. And what an appropriate show to talk about. We're going to be discussing Dolce & Gabbana, and they're pushing very heavily a hashtag DG Millennials hashtag, and I have my fabulous millennials here with me, who I'm sure would all classify themselves as DG millennials. But before we delve into our discussions and talk about the state of fashion at the moment and what's been going on at the shows, I'll just let you guys introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Marco Bajali. I just graduated from the Royal College of Art menswear. So yeah, let's see what's next as a millennial.
Hi, I'm Natasha Ahmed. I study fashion promotion and imaging at University for the Creative Arts, and I'm going to be in my second year from September. Yeah.
I'm Priyesh Patel. I'm finishing at St. Martin's studying fashion history and theory, and I'm a writer.
My name's Ben Duncan. I just graduated from Westminster Fashion, but I don't really have a...
No plan in place just yet.
Yeah.
So I want to dive in with this notion of sort of millennials, because I think it's really interesting to see a big brand such as this trying to target themselves so specifically. As people who are actually millennials, do you find something like this engaging and interesting, or do you think of it a bit like what I would always call the Saint Laurent model of them creating a brand with the veneer of youth that is actually being sold to people much older who want the sort of the cool of youth without being actually young? What's your take on it? Do you think, are you fans of a hashtag DG Millennial campaign?
I find it interesting, but I also find it really cringy.
Why did you say that?
Like, I don't know specifically about this show, but the thing that struck out for me most last time was the use of YouTubers. Because I'm so obsessed with YouTube and what they do as well, but I kind of look at it as like from an outside point of view, and I just find it really interesting. Like, I'm not sure who they're targeting by bringing those YouTubers in, because a lot of the YouTubers that they use as well are like affiliated with like high street YouTubers. Like, they use like Samantha Chapman's brother, who she does reel techniques that's sold in Superdrug. So I just find it quite weird, and there's like all these other links as well. But
that focus on these kind of new celebrities, like the influencers, what's everyone's take on that? You're looking very skeptical.
I think it's quite tactical. Obviously, everyone who's on the runway has a big following on Instagram or YouTube, and each of them are going to post it. And I think it goes forward with D&G's new attitude to attract younger people, I guess. Because if I think about like 2 years ago, they were doing really nice Italian heritage stuff, like really nice campaigns, and I quite liked it. And now it's just a bit random. It's a bit like high school prom. But yeah, I guess that's like...
I mean, the aesthetic of Dolce & Gabbana has always been this tacky, in a good way, Italian. Like, the tailoring is pristine, but then it's almost these decorated clothes, which is great. It's what Dolce & Gabbana has always stood for. And looking at everything else that's happening in fashion, that is, it's just one copies the next one, and it just keeps going. It's linear and the same. They're still maintaining, in a way, the aesthetic they've always had, which is quite good. It's just the marketing scheme of using Instagram and these people to attract that audience that, if not, it'll just be someone in Dubai buying the collection.
And do you see these kind of marketing campaigns using things like, what's interesting is they use these kind of self-made YouTube stars, so like Marcus Butler, people like that. But then alongside that, they've also sort of heavily been working with children of celebrities. So like their last campaign in the last menswear show, they had like the kids of Cindy Crawford and Pamela Anderson and Jude Law and Daniel Day-Lewis all in it. So it's really interesting, that sort of focus on two very different kinds of sort of celebrity. And there's a lot of, I think they're one of the brands who is championing the most these children of celebrities. And is that something that you guys find that's everywhere at the moment? You know, you see them not just in kind of shows like Dolce, but also in the pages of sort of more edgy magazines, so things like Love magazine. What do you guys feel intrigued by these kind of dynasties of famous people?
I feel like they're trying to target like a younger demographic, but then I feel like it's not like about the clothes now anymore. It's just about like who's modelling, so you know, using bloggers or using like celebrities' kids. So it's not really about the clothes anymore. It kind of becomes about person who's modelling the clothes.
And would you say that you guys are interested still in brands, as students of fashion, as in brands that are just about the clothes, or do you find the sort of the marketing things something that you find intriguing?
Depends how it's done. I mean, if you look at Rick Owens, it's a complete different spectrum. The marketing is done well, and it's done for the lifestyle that Rick Owens sells. It's fully a lifestyle. Whereas Dolce & Gabbana, the clothes are something, the lifestyle they're selling is another, and the client is completely someone else, on a different continent. So it's just a bit, it's tactics, if it works for them.
What other brands would you guys identify as getting their marketing schemes right?
Grace.
Grace Osborne.
Yes.
Why do you say that?
Every season, I guess she has quite a strong casting. Her concept is always really strong, and I think you don't need to really read the press release to know what she's communicating. I think that's quite strong.
I think Marcus Almeida as well is a better example of how
That's interesting.
a marketing strategy like this works, and it's sort of like being cool by association, because they're all about like creating a world what you can indulge in, and I feel kind of like
girls and
and like Dolce & Gabbana are trying to do it, but it feels a bit weird. It doesn't feel right. It feels like maybe they're trying to make the generation that used to buy into it feel cool, so they still want to buy into it by like saying like, look at this person's child. But yeah, I think real young people are a bit like, what's going on here? Like,
I'm interested in just looking at the big sort of Italian brands. What do you guys make of Gucci's strategy? Because they are someone who views sort of the internet and these different internet artists and figures in an interesting way that has been received quite well in the press and seen as quite organic. But I'm interested to get you guys' opinion. Do you find it intriguing, or?
I find it so weird.
You find it weird?
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit kind of like too many cooks spoil the broth. Like there's just so much going on. I find it so difficult to like engage in it, and like it's kind of like when you're looking at a painting, you're trying to look for a focal point, and you're just like, there's just too much. I don't know. Yeah, I find it really weird.
Do you feel like, because I feel like brands now operate as content producers, so they almost like publishers as well as making garments. And is that something? It's interesting that a lot of young people who are coming out of fashion schools at the moment, you know, the majority of jobs that will probably be available to them will be jobs within brands, because the spectrum of what brands are doing is so much bigger, particularly people coming from like a digital or a publishing or a editorial side. What's your take on it?
I don't know, I went into uni when like there wasn't such a big focus on social media, I guess, like when I started my foundation and in sixth form and stuff. So now coming out of it, when I see new students coming into St. Martin's so confident on social media and like have a huge following already before they already know their aesthetic and they're quite well known, I guess. I don't understand it, because I'm just coming out of uni. I'm like, yeah, I want to be a writer, but like, there's so many different types of writers now, so I'm a bit confused. I don't know. Yeah. Do
you think it is sustainable for brands to now stay off online or stay off social media? Like good examples of that with things like Phoebe Philo and her sort of approach to digital at Celine, but also Prada, you know, really sort of came very late to the digital sphere and have now sort of suffered quite greatly because of it. And that's one of the things that's identified with the troubles that they're having with that brand, is a lack of it sort of cottoning on to the success that e-retail was going to be. Do you think it is sustainable for people to? Because I think there's an interesting thing sometimes when I talk to students at the colleges, is like they don't want to be online, and there's a bit of a backlash. But I wonder if you think that's a sustainable model.
I think it is. I mean, look at Dries Van Noten, for example. He sustains himself. He doesn't have anyone backing him up. He's not Dolce & Gabbana, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, whatever. But his online presence isn't that big. I mean, he's got an Instagram, but it's just shows, and you know, you get some images every now and then. Unlike, you know, Dolce & Gabbana, like, I mean, just with the hashtag already, it's trying to aim for a generation that needs the hashtag when it's so unnecessary.
Yeah, it definitely can work, can't it? Because there's loads of brands, I think, as well, that like, Dries is quite a good one, because that's the kind of brand that like everyone in the industry like are so obsessed with and like regard it so highly. And I think like Marni's quite similar to that. Like I know so many people that are like dying to wear Marni, but it's so unattainable. And they're the kind of brands that don't have social media, aren't they? But then they seem to like live off this rich heritage of like people really respecting their brands. So yeah, it definitely can work, doesn't it? I mean, obviously the digital age is completely undeniable, but maybe that at some point they will have to go digital because
It's just the murder of talent, isn't it? Instagram. Like, I mean, just by looking at the show, these people who really talent is just, you know, pretty face.
Boycott hashtag. Why is that?
So the boycott hashtag started because they've been dressing Melania Trump,
Right.
and people started saying to boycott the brand because of it, and then they've done these T-shirts. They've kind of like adopted that thing for themselves, so that lots of them backstage are wearing these boycott Dolce & Gabbana T-shirts. So it's kind of them giving two fingers up to people who are sort of offended by them.
Right.
As Tom, one of my colleagues, pointed out, Beyonce actually did that first because she did her own boycott Beyonce T-shirt. But it's actually an interesting point. Do you guys feel that brand? I mean, they obviously quite clearly feel that they can get away with dressing Melania, and that the backlash against that is not going to have any effect on the people who buy their brand. And I mean, there's probably Trump supporters who engage with Dolce & Gabbana and buy it. But would you say that when you're shopping or when you're looking at brands that you're interested in, their sort of ethics in terms of what they'll associate themselves with is very important?
Absolutely. I think that's kind of, that puts me off Dolce & Gabbana so much. I think it's like, it can be cool, can't it, when people do that, like when Marc Jacobs did it, where, wasn't it like someone threw paint at his store, so then he printed the T-shirts with them on, but like, that's like a massive political thing, like, it's not cool to support Melania Trump. Like.
But they're the queens of drama, aren't they? I mean, everything they've said and done in the past, that's their marketing, that's all they need. It works for them.
I think they've always been really like controversial, it's like maximalist, like it's always been that, so I'm really surprised with the hashtag.
Bag's quite lol, isn't it? That hashtag bag.
Yes.
Quite like that.
But is it a sustainable attitude to? It's interesting we're talking so much about young people, and like young people are traditionally much more, and you know, as has been proved recently, traditionally much more left-leaning. So I find there's just quite an interesting disparity for me that they are dressing Melania Trump while also promoting this DG Millennial. They seem very at odds with each other, you know.
Yeah.
But
I feel like it's a bit all over the place, isn't it, really? I'm not sure, I don't think they know what they're doing anymore. I don't know necessarily, but they're a bit all over the place.
what should they be doing? Do you think just being classic Italian?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like it was so glam, wasn't it? And I feel like they've never been cool. They've always been glam and like lol and trashy, but like this cool doesn't work for them, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But like,
At least it's more of a show spectrum, though. I mean, all these catwalks, it's just, you know, white, clean, back and forth. It's just, you know, where's that Mugler of, you know, of the past? Where's the showmanship? Which, you know, it's not to my taste, but at least they're trying to do that, which you can see with the...
I was at the women's show when they had lots of influencers walking in, but they also had some of their couture clients walking in, and the atmosphere at that show was significantly more intriguing and uplifting than the atmosphere at lots of other shows, and people in the audience were sort of like screaming and clapping because they're, you know, someone that they knew would come out, or, you know, there'd be a bunch of clients and they obviously knew one of the other clients and she would be walking and there were kids in the show. And I do think that's an interesting point that you raise, in that it was quite a sort of a two fingers up to the stark white catwalk thing. But then it's interesting to just look at this having come out of the London shows, where lots of designers are also refusing to engage with that sort of traditional way of showing. You know, there's a lot of, you saw it with people like Art School and Charles Jeffrey and what have you, but it's just a very different thing. And I guess it comes back to that question of the purpose of the fashion show, and whether do you find the fashion shows interesting, or do you think that they do need to change and be much more of a sort of spectacle? Is it something that do you follow fashion shows closely?
Not as much anymore. I love it. Like, I totally agree with the showmanship thing. Like, you know, it's great when there's showmanship, but I kind of feel like our generation don't request it in a way, or like maybe it's more about products now, isn't it? And so,
I mean, we were having this conversation downstairs when we were all talking about where we're from, or where we're studying. I said, you know, just finished at the Royal College of Art. And, you know, with Zoe Broach, the head of the program, every year since she's been there, she tries to convey, you know, a show that is about everyone, not just one person, or, you know, like the straight, again, black, white, black floor, like up and down, like it is a show. We all had our own choreography, our own music, so I think it starts from that foundation point again. If the way you target yourself, your brand, is through this lifestyle, then you can convey everything you want to convey without needing this, in a way. Going back to Dries or Rick, who just do it so well, even Simone Rocha, who again is an aesthetic that since the beginning has always been kind of the same, not like, you know, looking at Gucci like we were talking about. It's the same aesthetic, but now it's like too sweet for the tooth. Whereas Simone, it's still the same, but she's twisting it to create her own language, which is so, it's what fashion should be.
Do the rest of you think that fashion shows will always continue? Do you think they have a, like when we've talked a lot about digital, and when there are all these touch points of making contact with your audience, doing a show for sort of 300, 200, 600, whatever it is, people, is that something that is relevant anymore in communicating?
I think we're in a place now where we just don't know, and it's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
But like, it could get to a point now where like people just like no fashion shows anymore because so many people are doing it, and like it's like people like moving out of London. There seems to be it stops being that there's like everyone's circulating around hubs, like fashion weeks and things. So maybe it will just fizzle out, but it's still great. Like everyone still enjoys it, but I think that's just. I think the general at the minute is just nobody knows, do they? Yeah.
It's nostalgia, isn't it? The idea of a fashion show.
Yeah.
It's still, it's, you know, it's what you think of when, you know, it's like, this is coming, you've got this preconceived idea, but it's hard to do it different. You know, look at Gareth Pugh with the whole films. It's just doing that different. I think this is just a bit confusing with Dolce & Gabbana.
Well, it's basically an advertising campaign, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it'll be streamed and it will be watched by lots of different people, and the video will be available. So it's almost like you do feel when you're at their shows sometimes like you're almost like a background actor, like you've been employed as a member of this kind of, you know, the stand-in crowd that just are there. So there are people on the seats for the live stream, you know, and you're not actually there. It's not for you. It's for. Which is probably what it should be, you know, that sense of fashion just being very insular and for a very small amount of people perhaps isn't sustainable and workable. But I do find it's interesting when I often talk to people at the colleges, like it seems like young people do have this fascination with the runway and the show, and I wonder if that is, as you say, if it is nostalgia or if it is, you know, whether that is actually the best way of showing fashion or whether it's just something that we've all grown up with and fetishized. But, you know, as someone who's interested in fashion, you tend to follow runway shows. But
yeah, I think as a student as well, you know, you're working towards this point that you just really want to see your work and have that groupie moment, you know, fangirl, just see it, walk down and, you know, just be happy. But is it the way? I don't know.
What's your take on, you were nodding there?
I think for brands that don't really use social media, fashion shows are a really good way for showcasing their ideas, and I think there's a lot of, I like that some brands don't overpost on Instagram or overpost on Facebook because it gives a little bit of mystery, and they can just have like a normal show and it'll still be a spectacle because you're looking at what they're going to be retailing, what they're going to be selling in retail next season, I guess. So I think that the fashion show is still important for some brands. I do think a lot of brands use it as more of a performance or a theatre or advertising campaign, but I think for smaller brands it is a point of success where they look forward to showing their work in the timetable for Fashion Week, and it's a good way to advertise their work for people to buy, I guess.
We've talked about Rick and Dries and Grace, but who's getting shows right? Like, is there, if you could go to any show, what show would you want to go to?
And the Millimista.
Really?
But that's just because it's the dream.
Yeah.
I think it's just because of the aesthetic. It's the product in a way. It's so on point. You know, it's being romantic, whether you're a man or a woman, being vulnerable, whether you're one or the other. So I think, for example, this is what really kills it for me when, you know, it's trying to sell something that they don't live themselves. Whereas the Anne woman from day one was a woman that, you know, quoted Patti Smith. So to see that now being followed through, even when it's someone else, like, he's doing such a good job at it.
So I guess what you're all saying is that it comes back to authenticity. You have to believe that what the designer the world that they live in is also the world that they're promoting.
I think Martine Rose is doing a great job of like doing shows at the minute as well.
Yeah.
Show. Like every show she does is just kind of like, you never know what's going to come. Well, you know it's going to come, but I mean like, she's just got all these exciting venues and stuff, hasn't she? Like, I think that's one show that I would love to go to at the minute. Yeah.
How about you, Natasha? What would you go to if you could go to anything?
I like Comedy Garçons, I think.
Yeah?
Because I like the clothes and I actually enjoy watching the show.
Yeah, yeah. So something that's a bit more of a spectacle.
Yeah.
And just going back to the millennial thing, how do you guys fit, you know, millennial is like such a term, you know, it's used consistently, and it's actually very strange to have your generation sort of so commented on, like your sort of one thing. And how do you guys feel about being classified as millennials and the constant sort of millennial bashing that goes on in the media?
I think I am. I think I'm too old to be a millennial.
How old are you?
27.
No, you're a millennial. Yeah, millennials, it's anyone under 34 is a millennial.
Right, okay. Because I still like fetishize over the 90s still, because so maybe I've just kind of team on the both of them, I don't know.
But do you find the criticism of sort of your generation as being like, I think it's really interesting in the response to the election as well, like the idea that you're sort of narcissist and lazy and not politically engaged, and you know, these are really sort of like common themes that you see in the media. And
I think it's weird actually, because I've like being in final year, you have to engage with the first years a lot when like they're helping you out and stuff, and it's quite interesting because I feel like they're way cooler than I am, and like I really don't get what they're all about, and like I consider them as millennials, and then but maybe that is just a millennial thing that like everything's so fast that like you kind of get disengaged. But yeah, I think it is quite a narcissistic generation for sure. Yeah.
Would you all agree with that?
Yeah.
It's just because you're so visible now more than ever.
Yeah.
So it's that thing, you're always, you don't have to be, but you know, you're always targeted to, you know, where are you, what are you doing, what not. So it's that need for like self-validation in a way.
And do you feel pressure to create this sort of online persona?
Not really.
Sometimes. I think it's to do with self-esteem though.
Yeah.
Or if I'm bored, I'll be like, I'll put an Instagram on.
Yeah.
But yeah, like...
But after you finished your collection, you changed your name
Yeah,
on
I did.
Instagram to your actual name, didn't you?
That's just because some people would want to define me and they couldn't. So I thought I'd better just change it. I felt really weird about that. It was kind of a big choice, actually.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean, that something like, you know, your name on a social media, it's so important, you know, both in terms of your friendships and your social life, but also your careers, like having that pressure. It's very interesting. That's what's so interesting about this is, you know, Dolce & Gabbana have grown as a brand far before having to ever think about that. You know, your aesthetic was literally the clothes that you made. It wasn't all the communication that you did around that. And I find it really interesting that people as students, whether you want to be a writer or a designer, are already having to craft this kind of like a marketing strategy around themselves. And you know how you present yourself online. It's the, you know, if anyone's going to hire you, it's the first thing they'll do. They'll Google you and they'll be like, oh, you know, he seems like this. And it is, you know, we all know that feeling when you meet someone and they're totally different to what their Instagram is like, and it's a really weird thing. And I think it must be an interesting pressure for you guys.
I mean, for me, it's just my portfolio. I mean, there's always, you know, the random chest picture in there, but it's just, why not? But it is just, it's, you know, if you meet someone down the street and they jump into a cab, they ask for your Instagram, so that becomes your CV in a way. So, I mean, in my eyes, I just sell what I want to sell. Nothing, not my breakfast.
Nobody's contacted me through email after graduating. I think one person, in fact, it was the SHOWstudio went through my tutor, but like apart from that, it's all been through Instagram and Facebook, just finding me through there. So I think it's obviously important, isn't it?
But does it make you feel like you're having to sort of grow up in public? Because for a long time there was like this wasn't criticism, but there was this thing about even the fact that, you know, St. Martin's had a show on schedule at Fashion Week. It was like, you know, these poor young people are being judged on the same level as these big brands, whereas now it's like it's got even more that case that, you know, everyone has to sort of grow up and be so visible from a very young age, particularly if you're working in the creative fields. It doesn't give you much opportunity to change your mind or try one thing or abandon an aesthetic and do something else. It's almost like you have to position yourself very early on. Like you're nodding a bit there.
I feel like it's so much pressure, like Instagram. I use it for uni work. So I'm not like actively on Instagram, but like my friends like post a lot, and I feel like it's so much effort as well to kind of like have this like online persona, and for some people it's how they are in real life as well, like you know, how they are on Instagram. For some people it's completely different, they are completely different on Instagram, and when you do meet them, they're not that person, if that makes sense. So I feel like it's a lot of pressure for young people to kind of build this platform, and in a sense you get more work if you have a good Instagram.
Depends what you're trying to sell. If you're selling the truth, then it shouldn't be hard. It's like, you know, an entry on your diary. But if you're trying to be someone you're not, then it becomes, you know, a funny game.
I think people have like an aesthetic on Instagram. Like my friend Ellen has a really strong aesthetic, and I can never get on board with that. Like I'm just like posting stuff of me like on nights out. And I like one time I'll try and like get involved with an aesthetic, but then I just want to overshare. Like I'm hanging out with my friends and my family, so I can never stick to something like that. And I think people who can, it's quite good. But I think that now, for jobs and stuff, people are actually buying into the person behind that aesthetic or person behind that brand. And you see like Charles Jeffrey, and he's such a like important figure in the production of his design.
It's like the cult of personality, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think he's quite an important figure in the success of his career, I guess. So I think
But do you think that relates to, is it an aesthetic or is it a personality thing though? Because I think some people would see him as an example of that kind of Instagram generation of fashion where it's about you and your lifestyle and what you're up to and what you're doing, whereas other people would see him almost as an example of the opposite, where it's just about this kind of aesthetic. I wonder where you see him sitting within all of that.
It's definitely about him to an extent, isn't it? Not in a bad way. It's just kind of like, I feel like if you took him away from it, you maybe wouldn't buy into it as much, because you just create a world to buy into. So yeah, I think it is largely to do with that.
And how is that different to what Dolce are doing?
they're using other people's personalities.
And also, you don't look at you never look at the clothes anymore with Dolce & Gabbana. You never like what can I wear it? It's just kind of like this spectacle.
If they asked you to be one of their millennials and model in their show, would you all do it?
They never would.
You wouldn't do it.
Maybe for a job.
You do.
Graduated now,
You'd be like, as long as my chest is out.
Yeah, exactly.
I will open the show.
Always.
Should we have a look at the show? We're going to watch a video of... So again, they've had lots of YouTubers. I will not be able to spot any of them, but hopefully you guys
I'm
will.
obsessed with YouTube. So
Why? Why do you like it so much?
It's amazing.
Really?
Love it. You can just literally, there's every part of every culture in the world ever on YouTube. It's just like a massive encyclopedia, isn't it?
Quite a fun fact is when I was at the women's show, basically everyone sat here, the runway's at the top, and these screens were projecting the names of all the different influencers on them, and they started like malfunctioning, and they did that thing, you know, when you're trying to do like a PowerPoint and it comes up with like the egg timer and then it all crashed it, and it was like so ironic because this show was meant to be all about like the digital age and technology, and then they couldn't get these big screens working, and it just showed like, I mean, I think one of them's not working there. It was hilarious, and I thought, you know, and it kind of summed up that thing that you guys were talking about, where it's not natural to them and they were trying to do it.
That's so much more interesting. Maybe they did mean to do it though, because that's quite interesting, isn't it?
It was quite amusing.
It's like a festival, doesn't it?
It is always.
I think that's what's exciting about it. It's like almost going to a concert.
Yeah.
In a way, it's, you know, that fantasy.
I think there's one thing that is interesting is they're speaking directly to a client, potentially actually more successfully than lots of other brands who say that they are doing that. Like when you're there as press, it's really not for you. You realise that they've invited loads of their clients, people are like screaming, and it's not for you anymore. And I think maybe that's why people find it, they criticise it a lot, because it is just so removed from that fashion thing of, you know, this bubble of people who are kind of kingmakers and they say whether something's cool or not.
So is everybody a celebrity? Or I think that you can kind of tell, because the ones who are celebrities can't walk properly.
Yes, they can't. They can't.
Interesting.
I mean, this is actually slightly more conservative in the use of sort of traditional models than the last one they did. The last one they had like little babies, like there was like whole families walking. And like that's always like a baby on the runway is always the worst thing in the world because they just like it's almost as bad as a dog. They just don't know what they want to do. They get really confused. They're like lolling about, like their heads rolling backwards.
I don't hate this as much as I hated the last one.
Why do you say that?
It's just kind of a bit more, looks a bit more accomplished, I guess. The last one just looked like the Disney store or something, I thought.
This is called the King of Hearts.
The sunglasses were quite good, actually.
Moving away from the whole millennial thing, the models though, now from like 5-10 years ago, it was, you know, that stereotypical like really buff Italian, whereas now, you know, a lot of like Asian, you know, it's a big market in China with Dolce & Gabbana. So you can tell, I mean, it is just marketing, isn't it?
Kind of
Like
just want
completely.
Younger, don't they? It's the prints that get me with what they're doing at the minute. I think the prints are just so monstrous. Like the
Really progressive
the
depiction
playing
of women
cards and
as
like
well.
Yeah.
Too literal.
they're like clocks and stuff. It's just not nice. It looks like a vintage emporium or something.
But then it's like you have to think about it as being something that is going to it's going to live or die on the internet, this collection. It's going to sell online, it's going to be consumed online, and, you know, something that's like, if they did their traditional, you know, super beautiful, well-cut black tailoring, it's just not going to
Which is timeless.
Yeah.
Whereas this is just one season. It becomes high street, just because you buy it and leave it. Yeah.
This is like a Victoria's Secret show.
Oh my god.
It is like
it
it
is.
is.
It's like a more like conservative version of Victoria's Secret.
But then that is the irony, is that the brand that does the best fashion shows in the world isn't a fashion brand, it's an underwear
I
brand.
love that bag. I think it's so funny with the hashtag on it.
Do you guys like the Victoria's Secret show?
I don't. I think
You don't?
It's all safe.
How about the rest of you? It's fine. It is quite Victoria's Secret-y in the sense of the girls in their underwear. It's kind of a bit of a two fingers up to the whole like gender neutral, androgyny, progressive, you know.
This isn't as offensive as this Victoria's Secret show, though, is it? In a way, I mean, like.
I think it's almost, the problem is whenever you have boys and girls on a runway and the girls are in their underwear, you notice even more that the girls are in their underwear than if it's just girls in their underwear with other girls. Like that's the, you know, with this it looks so outdated in terms of sort of like gender to have girls being sexy in there.
I kind of feel like it's always meant to make, in terms of Dolce & Gabbana's history, it's kind of always meant to make the woman feel amazing, isn't it? And I feel like Victoria's Secret pretends to be that, but it's not really, is it? It's like when you go in the store, there's like so many men in there.
Victoria's Secrets. I wouldn't wear it. It's just gross.
Who's this couple? Like I'm supposed to know who they all are, but I don't.
I don't know who anyone, I'm like, it makes me feel so old. I'm also technically a millennial and I'm like, I have no idea. Like I recognise like one person.
Maybe they could be using cooler people, like. What about like?
He's quite cool.
Like where's like Jaden Smith and
One
stuff? I mean,
person.
I don't particularly like him, but I feel like he's really cool now, isn't he? Like where are the Smiths and stuff?
But do you think that to a certain audience, these people are sort of cool and interesting?
Yeah. But from what I get, it's just the YouTube thing again. From what I get from that, like the demographics for those YouTubers are so young. They're like 12, 13. Like in fact, my mum's best friend's daughter, she watches it and she's 13, and I've like spoke to her about it, and so I find like that's what I find strange about it. Like those kids are never going to be able to buy into this. So.
But then it's getting them young, isn't it? Maybe they'll ask for the fragrance for their like 15th birthday, and then when they turn 21, they'll buy, you know, like a bikini or underwear. You know, it's that thing of trying to look.
I think when I started first really getting into fashion, that's what age I was. I was always looking at Dolce & Gabbana just because they were so in the eyes. So maybe that's what they're doing, trying to like cement themselves into people who are just coming of age.
But then it's you again. It's just selling a lie in a way, aren't you? You're not buying into the product. You're buying into what they're selling you in that way. So what's the point if you can't make your own decision? Like now more than ever, young kids can't make that decision anyways. There's no identity. So if they're already starting with that, then what's the point? If they can't choose what they want to wear, they have to choose what is cool to wear.
It's interesting you talk about the aesthetic because sometimes like even as someone who like is, you know, you're meant to have a really strong knowledge of the collections. Like with these, the pieces look identical, and it's like they just take the print off and put a different print on each season. I mean, they've moved away a lot from the kind of nipped-in waist that they used to do, and it's much more these kind of like tunics and bombers and that kind of thing. But it's not, you know, there's not that. I always felt like with Dolce before there was a very recognisable silhouette, whereas now it's much more, you recognise it for a very showy sort of surface.
Every show I've looked at recently, I couldn't tell you one thing about the clothes. It's just always who's in it. It's just like mind-blowing in a way, isn't it?
Well, it's just the might of the brand, isn't it? It's showing how much money they have and the access they have to people. And
I mean, where do they make most of their money? They probably don't make it on clothes, do they? So this is kind of just promo in a way, isn't it?
yeah, it's a brand building exercise, isn't it? Like that's why they've done things so often where they have like phones on the runway and iPhone cases or headphones and those kind of things. What's your take on it?
Even the songs are like really, like they're from the charts. It's really strange.
I had that guy last season, I had no idea who he was, but it felt like I was too old to understand it. Because it was like something that young people would really, really love.
But that's the problem, isn't it, when a 27-year-old feels like too old for something?
See some YouTubers.
They're all YouTubers.
Hey?
I think so. They're not, it's weird because they always use a different cast to everyone else. Like, you know, you get used to sort of the big guys being in each show.
Oh, is it? Oh my God.
Me and Chelsea.
Is that Spencer Matthews?
Yeah.
It's the only person I recognise. Shows how cool my team is.
It's so much fun to watch though, isn't it? Like, we're all having a right good old laugh watching this.
I'm just intrigued about whether you feel like there is a generation who maybe, you know, you talk about your friends and your friend's daughter who watches all these YouTubers, like whether she will look at this and think it's interesting, because I do think there's a climate of maximalism that has come really back into fashion, and I wonder for whether people who are just coming in now, whether they think they're not turned off by the aesthetic of this, they don't think it's tacky, they think it's almost cool and interesting, because Gucci is a similar thing, it's like pile it on and on and on. I don't know. It doesn't seem like, just even looking at how you guys dress, or maybe you're a little bit more, but like, you know, it doesn't feel like you're particularly interested in that kind of like more is more aesthetic, but do you think it's something that younger generation perhaps are?
Oh my God, YouTuber, Marcus Butler.
It's a lack of knowledge and quality, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, again, going back to high street, people buy into it, they see the price, they're like, oh yeah, sure.
Jim Chapman.
But then look, when they really go into, you know, a proper shop and look at proper, you know, beautifully made clothes, they don't see where the price comes from. And it's a struggle to like explain that to people.
But I guess it's what you define as quality. You guys, probably particularly being fashion students, you probably equate quality with things like fabrication and fit, whereas I wonder whether they're trying to speak to an audience who will never equate those things as quality. They just see it as to do with like branding or embellishment.
Yeah, and again, what's the point? It's just quite sad.
It's quite, but they always use Ralph Lauren as well, don't they? Like, what Ralph Lauren against Marcus Butler's such a weird pairing. Because I know Ralph Lauren just purely from Instagram. I didn't even realise he was Jude Law's son, and then Marcus Butler from like a completely different world. Like, it's just like a pure overview, isn't it? I quite like those sunglasses.
Do you think it'll damage the brand long term?
God no, I find it completely fascinating. I've got no idea. I'd love to see how it's going to transpire.
I feel like it's kind of become like Machina, like you know how like kind of went like with Jeremy Scott, it just kind of fell apart. I feel like that might happen like with Gabbana.
Well, where it stops feeling elevated,
yeah,
where it just
kind
feels
of
like,
becomes too much.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing that it's not trying to be fashion, it's trying to be pop. So yeah, it's like they're actively removing themselves from the conversation of being like a fashion brand or saying anything to do with, you know, moving fashion forward. It's much more like a pop culture thing, which I guess is fine if that's how you choose to.
Oh my God, that's that Vine guy. That
I love your knowledge of that.
I'm obsessed with stuff like this. He was the really controversial. He like made loads of like homophobia and rape jokes on his Vine.
Really?
Like, lost his following big time. Can't remember his name. You know, Nash Greer, that's it. Yeah.
Why have they put him in there?
God knows, that's a real.
Yeah, people were talking about that in the comments, like why is he in the show? Like,
real
he was like he did some really weird things.
But then, you know, they themselves have made lots of very inappropriate comments, and
How many looks is this?
Oh, it's so many.
I'm bored.
That's kind of,
I should appreciate fashion. I'm bored now just looking at it. It's the same thing.
What do you think, as a girl, what do you think about the way the girls are represented?
I think it's not very, like, I'm not going to say feminism, but it's not how women should be represented.
It's just strange to me. It's really strange.
I'm obsessed with it. Like, I think it's so...
But are you obsessed with it in the way you're like watching a car crash, or are you obsessed?
I'm obsessed with it in the way I'm obsessed with YouTubers, like watching it, like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
I want to know what's going on, but I don't know what's going on.
Do you think this is something we should see, though, more with fashion, where the brands are separating themselves out between ones that are like, you know, your Graces and people like that, or your Craig Greens, who are trying to do one thing, and brands that are just, you know, this is like, it's like Coke or whatever. It's like it's a brand. It's not about fashion. And maybe that's
what
fine.
is interesting about it, though, isn't it? They've really got their own marketing strategy here. Like, nobody else is doing this. I guess, like, you can applaud that. And I just feel like it's not for us, and we're all just looking at it like, what's...
Who do you think it's for, then?
Young people, like really young people. But
I read a review about the last season one when there was lots of YouTubers, and the journalist, when he left, he felt so old, like too old to like even think about wearing those clothes. And then he walked into like a flurry of fans, because there was loads of fans outside waiting for all those YouTubers to come out. And I think that it's really strange. Like, it's more like a show, like a theatre. Like, people are there for the people, and people will buy into the people and not the clothes.
It's so surface. That's what it is. I think that's the best word to define it. It's just there's nothing to it.
But then, in a way, as a marketing strategy, it fits perfectly for their clothes, because their clothes aren't particularly about substance. They are about, you know, surface detail and what have you.
Yeah.
So actually, they're never really going to attract a consumer who wants something timeless and elevated and discreet and remotely conceptual. So in a way, as a marketing strategy, actually, it fits very cleverly.
Maybe they're just trying to get the stuff that sells the most, which is probably the perfumes. They're just trying to get people to still buy that, and the people who are going to buy that are like kids at Christmas. Like, they're going to be like to parents, go on Dolce and Gabbana perfume because Marcus Butler says so. So maybe that's what it is. I love it when they all like high-five each other and stuff. I'm really enjoying it.
You're all having a good time. It's interesting to see how it'll... what I'm always fascinated with is the agreements that they have with the YouTubers. So in terms of like paid for posts and content and all of that. Like, I'd love to get in the nitty-gritty of all those contracts.
They're so rich, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like multi-millionaires, it's insane, and they're all like 21.
But you raised a really interesting point at the start, is that the products that they tend to push are like low-cost products. It's beauty stuff or high street stuff. Like, you know, they're always doing like ASOS hauls or Topshop hauls or whatever. So it's interesting to see them doing.
Maybe they just, Dolce & Gabbana just gave into the fact that nobody wants to buy the clothes now, so they're like, right, let's just push the low-end products as much as possible and just...
There is a market, it's not the market they're selling with the YouTubers. Again, I think the biggest markets are China and the Middle East, the client base. So, I mean, you don't, you know, I mean, in China, you don't get YouTube, starting point. Middle East, I doubt, you know, they really care about YouTube in that way. So, I mean, it's just, it's a fake fantasy. Like, it's great to sell a fantasy, but it's a fantasy that, like we were saying before, doesn't belong to them in any way. Might belong to the clients, but not even. So it's just interesting.
And it's interesting also that it is very removed from that sense of, you know, they were always about history and heritage, you know, kind of like Italian, like Italian craft and history and all these symbols of Italy, you know, pasta and all of that was in their collections. And this is, again, very removed from that, which is strange. What do you think? Do you think there will be and should be a backlash about them doing the boycott?
Yeah, I think that's not cool at all, is it?
Because they're selling that T-shirt. It's $200 or something.
Kids will buy it and they don't know anything about politics. It's so not fair. Like, those poor kids who are just wearing that because they think, oh, it's cool. It's not.
But that's like Dior and the feminist thing. Like, I just find it just as cringy and just as wrong to sell that it's such a political statement, but it's not at the same time because of the context it's in.
Do you think fashion brands should try and be political and try and comment on the issues of the time, or do you think they shouldn't?
I mean, if it's not for sales, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's...
it should at the minute, though. I think it's really important to do it at the minute. Yeah.
Look at, wasn't it Catherine Hamnet in the 80s? Like, you know, it was a slogan T-shirt, but it had a purpose.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's just...
Jumping on an issue to make money. Yeah.
And for an Instagram post.
I think to have backlash about dressing Melania is like one thing, but then for them to make a T-shirt about it is a whole different thing. It's almost like supporting it quite proactively. Do you know what I mean? And that in itself becomes political. But if they had ignored it, it wouldn't have been a political statement. It would have just been like, yeah, we dressed her like we're a fashion brand.
It was interesting because Ralph Lauren dressed her, and you know, it kind of like people were a bit pissed off, and it kind of went away because it was just like, you know, well, anyone can buy our clothes, we'll dress anyone, what have you. But then I do think it's really difficult. I think the reason so many fashion brands didn't come out with comments, particularly around the time of the Muslim ban, where lots of big companies were making comments, lots of fashion brands didn't, because they're very aware that they're selling their clothes. You know, the kind of people who buy high fashion are potentially people who are Trump supporters. So it's very difficult for them to sort of, it shouldn't be, but I think that's, you know, it's almost like, who do you hitch your wagon to? Do you do it to people who maybe would never buy your clothes anyway? I don't think they're particularly, you know, they're probably aware they're not going to appeal to a sort of like left-leaning, informed audience. You know, they're going to appeal to someone who's very much about sort of surface and what have you. So we find it interesting. Is that our kind of takeaway from it?
Amusing.
Amusing.
Yeah.
Troubling, or does it make you feel optimistic about the state of fashion?
No.
No, why not?
I just doesn't feel like fashion. It feels like, yeah, I don't put this in the realm of like all the designers that I love. It's just kind of, it's there and it's interesting, and you know, it feels like a brand. It doesn't feel like fashion. Yeah.
What were you going to say? You were laughing.
It's a bit beyond retro, like vintage prints and stuff, and it's quite disappointing because I think when they were doing their Italian heritage things and they were wearing, like using lots of black and red, and they used to do those really amazing campaigns. It was so pretty and like quite indulgent. It was a bit kitschy, but it was quite nice to see, like when you were like flick through a magazine, and then to see it go from that to this, which looks a bit naff, like a bit disappointing.
But do you not think that all of fashion's kind of having to go down to this sort of lowest common denominator type thing, because it's like everything now is about reach and clicks and followers? So that's why you're seeing, you know, fashion's always been in bed with the world of celebrity, but I think what's happening here is just, it's how you turn that into something quantifiable, and people who are big on the internet is just so quantifiable in terms of what they bring to your brand. I just think it's a way that a lot of brands are going to go, I imagine, you know. It's like Burberry have actually worked with YouTubers kind of, you know, they did the whole, like Jim Chapman, people like that, you know, for quite a while, and it's interesting the ones that do it and get away with it, and the ones, even when you think of like Miu Miu actually, like using celebrities in their campaign, it's not something that is particularly, it's just, I guess it's the way you frame it and push it, which is what's interesting about this.
This is very much a focus on the people who are wearing the clothes. And when I first saw the show, when they started using YouTubers, I was like, oh my God, like, this is so weird to see people who do like Superdrug hauls, like on a D&G like catwalk. And then there are other brands who use YouTubers or like millennials or celebrities, or I guess a lot of people use Ralph Lauren. But it's not as apparent. It is still focus on the clothes and the brand, and it is them putting their aesthetic onto that person, not that person like
It's a desperate
overtaking their aesthetic.
Well, yeah, you're very right. That what this is it's them trying to use all of these people to give themselves the veneer of cool. So they're almost hoping that the identity of these people will help them reposition their brand, which is the total opposite of them, putting their brand on these people and using that as a mode of communication.
Yeah, you don't notice it as much when Burberry do it, but you still feel like, if you look at a campaign, you see celebrity, you're like, oh, that's glamour, isn't it? Like, with the way Prada do it, but you never like, oh, now I'm obsessed with this person who's wearing Prada, but with this it's like, you just literally, it's about that person.
Maybe the whole concept has changed of like Dolce and Gabbana as well, like the way they present their shows, the music, and the way they promote it before the shows. That way you notice it so much more. Whereas if Burberry's to put Jim Chapman on a catwalk, it's not that much of a focus to the whole quality of the show, I guess. Whereas this is very much, we have all these YouTubers, they're all wearing our t-shirt backstage, like, watch our story.
So you guys aren't feeling particularly optimistic about the state of fashion either? What's your take on it? You look thoroughly depressed by it when you were watching it.
It's become fast fashion, can't speak. Like H&M almost.
Yeah.
In a sense, but
that's been a problem that's happened for a long time. If when fashion is trying to appeal to so many people, it then does enter that territory of why should you then pay so much money for it? I think that's a smart thing to point out. How about you? What's your big takeaway?
Not Dolce & Gabbana. No, I think, again, tailoring is beautiful. I think what you see in the show and what you see in store, like always, is very different. Especially, depending what country you're in and where you go into it. It's a bit of a desperate call for coolness in a way. Like, you've got these two old gay Italian men getting old, they want to fit in. That's how it feels in a way, and it's just a bit, it shouldn't be what it is. You've got the skill, you're a designer, you're an artist in a way. If you're just selling this, you've given up what you do.
Would any of you wear it?
no.
You're like, yes!
maybe like, I quite like that hashtag bag. I think I'd wear it for like pure, just the lol of it. Like I think it is, as like intellectual design, I think it's quite bad, but I still think it's really fun. Like it's still lol. I'd just be like, oh my God, look at this Dolce & Gabbana bag I've got. It's so funny, isn't it?
But I think that's funny that you describe it as lol. It's like that's exactly what it like caters to that kind of like lol emoji mentality of like there being nothing more than just like a kind of like raised smile and like an emoji.
I think they're doing this tacky thing, but they think it's the way forward. Whereas like when Moschino do it, it's quite intentional.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's any irony here.
No, like you buy into that like McDonald's bag or whatever. Whereas this is just like, this is what they thought is going to be good on the catwalk, and you're just like,
I think that's
you could wear it, but it might look like you're wearing it seriously because that was their intention. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like usually like with the Moschino thing, there's a very interesting thing of who's laughing at who.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, it's like
everyone's laughing at them.
it's just a little awkward. Maybe that's a good note to end on. Thank you for taking the time to critique. Should we give them a round of applause just to be nice and wrap things up?
Thank you.